transition from the historical and spiritual, mind you, right? Because what we will overstand from Dr. Varmah's presentation and from what Dr. Kaba's provided us with is that as ancient Africans, there was no separation between religion, science, community, or statehood, and all of these things. So Dr. Varmah, I like to call him a religious subject matter expert. And I'm not placing a whole lot on him because I don't even think that really quantifies who this brother is. So I align myself to Dr. Varmah and our holy Coptic church, our ancient Tamarayan or ancient African church religion, because it made too much sense. And I was always traveling back. But what were we doing at this point? Before that point, what were we doing here? And he was able to take us back, and I'll just keep this portion brief, 25,000 years. I'll just say at that point. And knowing, and I'm going to drop a heavy mound on it, it'll clarify it. And knowing that we have a 24 billion year history. Pardon me? A 24 billion year history. Right? And different, as it relates to different cycles that exist on this planet that we live in. And without further ado,
how's everybody feeling? Good. Very good. As Dr. Kaba was speaking with you, and I was sitting in the back, I was listening. And he and I, the last few days, and over the last probably month and a half, we've been communicating over the telephone. And we've done some online broadcasts together. He addresses the educational aspect, the historical aspect. And I come and I talk to you from the religious aspect. In ancient Tamarayan, or what you call today Africa, there was no separation between church and state. It was understood or overstood that true spirituality or true religious identity worked hand in hand with our civil or our governments. There was no separation. Now, I want to start off by saying something that I learned today. When we went to the federal penitentiary at Warwick, we spoke for about 2.5 hours. And after speaking, we got to meet with different inmates. It was probably about 100, 150 of them, and everybody was saying thank you for coming in. They were really excited that you came. And one of the inmates came up to me and said, I appreciate you coming and everything you said, but I disagree with most of what you said. I said, no, but I disagree because you don't believe in God. You don't believe in the Creator. I said, no, that's not what I said. No, that's what you said. So, instead of going back and forth, I said, well, if I gave that impression, let me apologize for giving that impression, because that's not what I meant. He said, well, I don't need the apology, and he pretty much walked away. Now, I could have gotten my ego in the way and said, well, who does he think he is? And instead, I said, okay, what's my lesson? My lesson is, be clear. So I'm going to be clear when I start right now. I believe, as Dr. Kaba believes, as Brother Banks-Bey believes, in a supreme force, or source, or entity, or being, or divinity. Is everybody clear? We are not anti the Creator, nor those creators that came forth out of that creative force or that creative source. Is everybody clear? All right. I believe in the original books of the Bible. Can y'all please repeat what I just said? I believe in the original books of the Bible. Do we have that so far? All right. I believe that 2,000 years ago there was a Savior who came to a people. I do not believe that Savior is whom we've been made to believe he is. Is everybody clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. Why is that important? That is important because, as Dr. Kaba just mentioned, whenever you say something to a people, when we speak about blackness and who we are and where we've come from and how we built the pyramids and how we did all these great things and how we were the first life on earth, everybody in here said what? That's right. That's right. Deep.
Yeah.
Powerful. Go on, bro. Right?
Keep it going.
But when we touch on that thing called religion, ooh. Here we had a person who understood you were all this greatness. But if I said to you, you were all of that, but you were not this religions that we've embraced, then you get taken aback. How could you accept you were the Paleo-American? You were Nubian. You were Aksum. You were the Aztecs. You were the ancient people of the Caribbean, the Arawak. You could accept all this greatness, and that all this greatness predates modern monotheism. Yet if someone says to you, then if that is the case, then how could you really be Christian as it's called today, Muslim as it's called today, or Jewish or Hebrew or whatever the names that everybody's grabbed to identify themselves with today? And further, what is it inside of us that makes us innately want to relate to these religions? Because it's not something that people say, well, that's because of slavery. No. Well, that's because of colonial invasion into Africa. No. That's because of the Arab invasion into Africa, or the East Indian from the land of sin, of their invasion into Africa. No. Because prior to their coming into what we call Tamare, or what you call Africa today, we had a true religious identity. If I was speaking to a Christian, and I'm a Christian, and I tell people, say, I'm a true Christian. Now, what does that mean? Well, like everyone else in this room, I grew up here in America, and I went to school, and I went to Catholic school, and I learned Virgin Mary and Pope, and Paul and St. Peter, and the whole thing. And in learning it, I learned certain things that I'm sure I share in common with you. And one of those things that we share in common with you is, or we should say, is becoming as we awaken, that this individual called Jesus, I want you to say that name. This is Jesus. A babe. I want you to take your mind for a moment. You ready? There's a manger. Because this is how the story was taught to me. So if I'm wrong in how I tell it, please correct me. There was a manger, and in this manger sat this young lady. She was pregnant. She went into labor in Judea, and she brought forth a male child. Yes? Mm-hmm. And there were shepherds in this manger. And this wise men came and traveled from some lands to find this baby. Right? And this baby, according to what we learned, was the savior to humanity. He was the Son of God. And this baby was going to save his people. I'm getting it right so far?
Yeah, immaculate conception.
And then this individual, this child was protected because this child was the Son of God. Yes?
Yes.
And this child's life was in danger because Herod, something about Herod wanting to kill the child. Right? And then that's when the story gets a little interesting. Because then suddenly this child's mother and stepfather are told, take this child whose life is in danger and go to Africa. Oh, I know in the Bible it says Egypt, which is in Africa.
Yeah.
There was no Egyptos there.
That's right.
So I have an issue with that, because if this child is being taken to Africa to hide, I'm going to hide because I'm wanted right now. Not for real. And I'm going to Sweden to hide. I'll be okay, right? You and I both know it really is not going to work. So I'm saying that, so if this child is being taken to Africa to hide, not, okay, I'm going to send my child to Portugal, no. I'm going to send my child to Greece, no. Gabriel, Michael, come here. We got to figure out where we're going to send this baby. Well, Africa. This child goes to Africa, as the story is told, for 12 years or 13, depending who you ask, and then he pops up with Mary. Mary, I thought he was with you. Joseph, no, I thought he was with you. Where's this child? He's in the temple talking to the Pharisees, correct? So this child for 12 or 13 years lived in Africa. Like you and I, we grew up in America, and there's an educational system, right? In Africa, in that part of Africa that they want to call Egypt today, there was an educational system. When you don't go to school here, what do they call it?
Truancy.
Well, in Tamanate, we had an educational system, so this child was thereby required